Howdy folks. Today we are going to be looking at a really special tag in HTML, that being the canvas tag. The canvas tag allows you to just draw whatever you want onto the browser in a certain area, and that really allows you a lot of creativity when building your pages. Let's get into it. So to start off, we have our tag, canvas. Notice this tag takes children. Okay, well, do we do our drawing inside here? Like maybe we have shape, we have image. That's how SVGs work. That's not really how Canvas works. Canvas, actually in here, you're supposed to put a message. That's kind of weird, right? Well, the reason is Canvas wasn't always well supported by browsers, and it came out quite a while ago. And so the idea is if the browser didn't recognize this tag, it would just show the message instead. But if it did recognize the tag, it would ignore the message. So that way you could give a message to someone to say, hey, maybe you need to upgrade your browser, that sort of thing. Most importantly, I want to put an ID on it. And I want to put a width and a height. These are not the same as CSS width and height. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. But they are definitely different. So now we go over to our script here. Okay, let's grab it. Canvas equals get element by ID canvas. To draw to the canvas, this is a very low level API. And so if you've got experience with OpenGL, it's not that low level unless you're doing three-dimensional stuff, but it has a very simple two-dimensional API. The first thing you need to do is you need to get the context. It's often abbreviated CTX. There is a method on Canvas called getContext, and you need to give it the type of context you want. 2D is a common one. There's also WebGL for three-dimensional. 3 dimensions is really complicated, so we might get into that in a later video, but we're not really going to talk about it here. This will just mostly be 2 dimensions. Now that we have our canvas, well, let's draw something. So the first method we're going to look at is called fillRect. Now this takes 4 parameters. The first is the X and Y of the starting corner. So if I put 100, 100, it's going to start at 100, 100. Then the width and the height. Okay, run that. There it is. But it's all black. How do I give it a color? Well, the CTX has what is called a fill style. And that's where you give it, for example, a hex color code for red, or an actual just color name to use that. You can see fillRect itself doesn't actually take in a color. You have to set this first. Why does it do that? Well, because when you're building stuff, you might have multiple things that you're drawing in the same color. So rather than make you give the color every time, it just lets you change it as you need to. So let's look at more of something a little more complex, like a shape. Okay, so we've got our rectangle. Let's set our fill style to red. And then if you draw, as JavaScript executes, it's just going to draw over the top. There's no real Z index in Canvas. So in order to do a shape, we actually need something more complicated. We need to define a path. So I'm going to begin path. Now I need to move to a specific place to start my line. And that will be ctx.move to. Think of this as kind of like picking up the pen and placing it on the paper. Now, if I want to draw a line, ctx.line to. So we're tracing our shape out. So let's go to 50, 100. Okay. Then we'll do another line 2. And let's go maybe 10 and 40. Then what you want to do, because now we've started somewhere, we've drawn 2 lines. To finish our triangle, we need ctx.closePath. What that does is that's going to draw a line between the final point and our first point to connect that. You don't have to put that in. It will do something if you don't put it in. It's just kind of nice. Okay, what if we run that? nothing showed up. Well, that's because this doesn't actually tell Canvas to draw anything. All this does is define the shape. So what we can do is we say ctx.fill, not fill style. And what that's going to do is that's going to fill that shape in with the fill style. Like that. It's kind of a small triangle, isn't it? We'll make that a little bit bigger. Let's make this 300 and 400. Ooh. It was supposed to be 300, not 30. There we go. Well, now it's long, right? So you can see that starting point there comes down here, comes down here. If we just want to draw the line, you would use stroke. And you can see it's in black because, again, we haven't set our stroke style. You could do both. Fill, then stroke. You probably want to fill before stroke because otherwise the fill will possibly override the stroke, right? But you can see, it's kind of hard to see the green in here. Maybe I'll reverse these, actually, because red is a little bit easier to see in that smaller line. There you go. So now you can see that green triangle with that red line around it. You could do one or the other, fill or stroke. This is how you do lines too. You just do a move to and a line to, and then you close the path. So let me grab that. I'm going to begin path. I'm going to move to. Let's put this kind of off to the side here. Let's go 100 points, and then we'll just close the path and we'll stroke. Doesn't make a ton of sense to fill that. And there's that line. Okay, so now we've got the ability to do rectangles. We've got the ability to do these lines here. And now we've got this. This, you notice, even though we began a new path, it still uses the same fill style and stroke style. If you don't want to do that, if you want to prevent that, what you want to do is you want to actually push your context stack. And the way you do that is with ctx save. What that does is that basically takes your existing context that it was before you made your changes and pushes it onto a stack. Then once you're done, now that was it. You use restore. And what that's going to do is that's going to restore the original context. And so now if we run this, you can see that drops to black because the previous context had a fill style but no stroke style. And so this fill style and stroke style are contained just for this block. Why do you want to do this? Well, when we get, and we're not going to talk about it in this video, but at some point you can do transforms and rotates, and those can really, really change your context a lot. So instead of guessing and having to reset what was done to a previous context, or having to be careful with that context to make sure you don't mess up other things later on, you can save and restore just to fully reset the whole context to get it back to where it was before. Okay, let's do something kind of a little bit fun. Let's maybe expand and contract our line. So let me declare a variable, 400, and then I'm going to put this inside a set interval. So what I want to do is, I'm going to say, okay, let's run this every 100, and then y2 plus equals 25. If y2, well, yeah, actually, let's just leave it at that. Now, if we run that, did I not start it? Oh, because I'm not actually using y2 in here. That's why. You can see it gets longer, and then it goes off the screen. So let's see what we can do. We don't want it to go off the screen, so maybe what I want to do is I actually want to define a period. And then if y2 is above 500, I'm going to reverse the period. Else if y2 is less than 200, reverse. Well, actually, we could do that in the same place, right? y2 is less than 200. So basically, it should go to 500, reverse, go to 200, reverse, go to 500. All right. It didn't do anything. That's interesting. Let's console log our y2. Oh, console low is not a function. I mean, that is a very reasonable error for it to be giving, isn't it? Okay, it goes up. Oh, it just keeps going. Hmm. Oh, because we didn't actually put period in here. Okay. Okay. Oh, but now it's getting smaller, but I'm not seeing anything change. Now it looks like it is oscillating correctly. What's going on there? Well, what happens is when you draw again, the canvas isn't reloading itself. So it's not refreshing. So what we actually want to do is there's a specific function for this, and that is clearRect. ClearRect 0, 0, 500, 500. I want to clear the entire rectangle, the entire draw window. Now, you can see it gets larger and shorter because what's happening is every time it draws, Canvas is redrawing a white rectangle over the whole thing, wiping everything out. Well, that's not great because it wiped out the rest of our drawing too. Well, if you need animation, you actually have to put all this stuff in a function. So what I'm going to do here, indent all this, and now I'm going to take the set interval, I'm going to pull it out. Okay, I'm going to pull these variables out as well, pop them at the top here, and then inside here, I'm going to take all my draw code, oops, and pop it back in here, but it's just still using Y2, and now I'm just going to call draw. And I'm going to pull my clearRect to the top here. So now what I've got my variables here. When I call draw, it runs through and draws the whole thing. It clears the previous state, runs through, draws all these things, draws this. The interval then is just responsible for changing that Y2 and calling draw. Now you can see it might look like, oh, nothing changed, but really what Canvas is doing is now it's redrawing everything, every single loop. And that is one of the downsides of it, is you do have to generally redraw everything unless you're very selective about it. You have to redraw everything, every single loop, just to make sure it comes out nicely. Now, if I look here, my canvas is 500 pixels, 500 pixels. Can I make it bigger? Well, let's add some styles. Let's just say, okay, style canvas width 100%, height 100 VH. Full height, full width. Whoa, what happened? It's stretched. Well, that's because when Canvas is drawing, it doesn't look at the width of the element. It looks at the width and height that you put in here. So this draw area is only looking at 500 by 500, and then it's scaling that. And you can see the pixelation on it too. It's scaling that to the rest of the window. So if you're going to resize a canvas, you actually have to set its width and height properties manually automatically in JavaScript, but you have to make sure you set those properties as well. So one way I could do that is I could say, okay, let's get the actual size of our canvas. Okay. This dot, it is get bounding client rect. Let me just console log that so you can see what's in it. This has a height and a width. So now what we can do with that information is I can say canvas.width equals rect.width, canvas.height equals rect.height. And now you can see it properly expands because the canvas width is dynamically expanding with the window. So that's how you make that work. All right, let's talk about images. In order to draw an image, it actually has to exist as an image object. So you might think, oh, I need to make an image tag in here. You do need to make an image tag, but it doesn't actually have to exist in the DOM. So I can actually create one. Image, tag.source equals, let me look up a good one. Just going to use place kitten. So we'll pop that in there. Oops, not in there. Now, the thing is, the image won't have loaded initially. So the draw actually won't work the first time around. So what I want to do, I'm going to say, okay, ctx.drawImage tag. I give it the whole tag. I give it, there's a couple things you can do. So if I just start off, let's say 0, 0. Okay. You can see there's the image. Draws over everything. You notice it took a split second to load because the browser, now it's cached. You can also give it a width and a height. So if I say 100, 100, it's going to try to render. And you see that did give it a little bit of squish, right? So, and you can make anything animate. I'm just doing the line because it's easy. So I can animate the position of the image. I can move that around. I could do different shapes, things like that. There's a couple other things that you can do with Canvas. So this is really the basics. And might cover more in an advanced video. I hope this is fun, interesting. I enjoy Canvas. I think it's really good. Its SVGs are a little bit more optimized in a lot of cases, but Canvas gives you, I think, personally, a little bit more power over how you're doing stuff. Anyway, have a good one, folks. We'll see you next time.